And now let us begin. All right, guys. So tonight I want to talk about what is the secret and key to growth. Okay, people talk about growth all the time. What is growth? How do you grow? What does it mean to grow? Okay, so very often you think of growth, we talk about, growth in different ways. There are books about it, but I want to explain the deeper idea of what growth really is. Now, let's just use an analogy here. The analogy is, in the physical world, when something grows, how does it grow? It expands its boundaries. It means that you're confined by something, and then when you grow, you expand your boundaries. In life, spiritual growth, like physical growth, means that you are going to expand your boundaries. You become bigger. You become more inclusive. You're able to expand the limitations of your normal situation. So I want to ask you all, what do you think is the most important key to growth? What trait do you need to grow? So, okay, you'll say a lot of things. You could say, diligence. You could say steadfastness. You could say humility. There are many, many traits. But what I want to tell you is the strangest thing and the strangest factor that is necessary for growth. Without this factor, there's no growth. Okay? It's a very bizarre thing. The trait you need or the situation you need to grow in life is called hiddenness. That's crazy. Hiddenness is the quality that we need to grow. Okay, let me explain what that means. This world is called an olam. Olam is from the root of the word leha'alim. So the word for world actually means to hide. Why is that? What's the connection between the idea of world and being hiding? And the answer is that this world exists the way it does because God conceals himself and he wants us to find him. He wants us to see him in the world, but he's not fully obvious if you don't want to see him. He conceals himself. That creates the backdrop for this world called Olam Hazeh, this world. Olam. He conceals himself. Now, why is that? Because the concealment that he does allows me now to have free will to choose what it is that I want to do. And without that, then I'll always do the right thing. And imagine yet a world where every time somebody, ate unhealthy food, they drop dead on the spot. Okay? How long would it take till no one ate unhealthy food? Not a very long time. So if everything in the world was obvious and was always clear to us, we wouldn't have free will. We wouldn't be able to choose. The hiddenness, the concealment in this world is what allows us the ability to choose how we want to live our lives. Okay? And I'll give you an example to this concept. When I used to live in Israel, so we used to have in our house we had a room that we kept the candy in, and we had it wasn't a whole room, but we had a closet. And that closet was known as the junk closet. And I called it junk because I didn't want my kids to eat too much candy. So they were living in Israel, and I thought that if I call it junk, they would be less excited about candy, which was a kind of a mistake, because when people would actually give them candy, they didn't really realize, being Hebrew speakers, that it was candy, so they would say thanks for the junk, and people would be insulted. But the story was, one time, it was Saturday morning, we were sleeping a little bit late, my wife and I, and all of a sudden we heard the kids going into the junk closet. Now the rule was, you could not go into the junk closet on your own. Okay, that was special times where we would give the kids junk, candy. Now, I thought it was strange. The kids would sneak into the junk closet. They knew the rule, they kept the rule. So I thought to myself, I understand what they're saying to themselves. They're saying, listen, mommy and daddy really want to give us candy because it's Saturday, it's Shabbat. That's what they do. Now, if we asked them for candy, they would give us, but they're sleeping. So I really don't want to bother them to go and to wake them up for the candy they want to give us anyway. So wouldn't it be a great thing, a great mitzvah, a right thing to do for us to take the candy ourselves and not to bother them? And that, I imagine, was the rationale. So now I decided at that moment to sneak in behind the kids as they were taking the candy. And all I did was I cleared my throat. That's all I did. And the kids turned around. Ah! Don't shoot! They got this sense of guilt about them. But why? If a minute ago they thought they were doing the right thing, Saturday, don't wake your parents up, they want you to have candy anyway, it's Shabbat, why did it look so guilty when I just cleared my throat? And the answer is exactly this point. The answer is that when the truth is obvious to you, then what happens is you have no option but to do it. So when I was not in the room, so then the kids could go and rationalize why it was okay. Once me, the person who made this rule, was now in the room, their parent, the rationalizations fall away. And think about it in our own lives. If every time you did something, God's presence was so palpable, you could feel it, would you be able to do the wrong thing? I mean, what do you do when you're driving? You see a cop along the side of the road, right? You're not speeding because you see he's right there. So the free will to choose how you want to live your life is really predicated on God's concealing himself to allow for another existence to be in the world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the root of where Ra, evil or negativity, comes from. From the concealment, there allows the ability for a person to feel as if there is some other reality. He can choose to do something not good because the truth and God's light is not completely revealed. He's concealing himself. Now, once God conceals himself, he creates a marechet, a system that allows this concealment to have a form, okay? Has a form. It has a way that now this concealment can seem like it's its own system, okay? And this is the deeper meaning of what the sages tell us. They say that there is a force that you've heard of called Satan, in English called Satan. It's a negative force, a force of concealment. And you probably heard the idea of the angel of death. And you may have heard the idea of the Yetzer Hara, as we talked a few weeks ago, the force that pushes me to negativity. The Talmud says they're all three the same thing. How can they be the same thing? It's going to be different things. Because the root is that they all are based on the concept of this concealment. Once this concealment is in the world, then there allows a place for negativity. That force, that system that's set up in the vacuum is the same thing. It's the Satan, it's the forces that push people to negativity, it's the force that thereby leads to death, and therefore it's even what's called the Yetzer Hara, the force that my individual force that pushes me or can entice me towards negativity. That is the Yetzer Hara. And every person has within them this part of them that sometimes, wants to do the right thing, and sometimes not. And you rationalize. Now imagine a person who knows, he smokes a lot. And as he decides smoking's bad for him. Okay? So he wants to quit. Now how does he quit? So he says, I'm not going to smoke. Now how does he start to smoke again? If he decided that smoking was bad for him, how does he start again? Well, the answer is very simple. Because of the process. What happens is he says, you know what? One cigarette, that's not so bad. Okay, just one. Takes one. And then, you know what? What's two? Three. And he rationalizes the whole thing because the truth and the reality have been removed from his mind. He's able to go and to delude himself that the clarity is not there. And even though he knows this might be bad, it's not obvious. And that's the power called the Yetzer Hara, the individual force that goes and breeds concealment and allows you to get into this world where you now go and you could feel things are a certain way that they're really not. Okay? Now, what we're going to do today on this class of Aggadda, we're going to go through a tremendous Aggadda. It's a tremendous story in the Talmud that speaks about the future of this force of Yetzer Hara that may push me towards negativity. What is going to happen in the future to this force? So you guys all have it now. If you want to read inside, I'm going to actually read it to you. It should be, you'll see it now on the page. I just copied it on the comments. So I'm going to read to you right now this story of the Aggadda, and we're going to hear the problems, and we're going to try to explain it. So the Aggadda starts as follows. It quotes a verse from Zechariah. The verse says that the people in the future will be mourning. They'll be sad, they'll be mourning. So the Talmud says, what is the cause of this mourning? Okay? And there's two different opinions. Rabbi Dosa and the rabbis argue about what this verse is referring to. In the future, there'll be mourning. People will be, there'll be a hesped, there'll be mourning. What's it about? Okay, one has one opinion. We're going to leave that for now. It's a fascinating idea, but it's not for our purposes now. The second opinion says that the reason why people are mourning in the future is because this force of negativity, this Yetzer Hara, will be slaughtered in the future. Now, but that's weird. If this is the force that pushes me to negativity, why should it be, why would I be mourning? I should be happy. That's what the Talmud says. It says, but according to the one that explains the cause is the slaughtering of the evil inclination, is it an occasion for mourning? Why should it be mourning? It's an occasion for joy. So why are the people crying? Why are they weeping? Why are they mourning? So now, the Talmud says, this explanation is Rabbi Yehuda expounded. In the time to come, the Holy One, blessed be He, will bring the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and slaughter it in the presence of the righteous and the wicked. Positive people, negative people will see that Hashem in the future, God in the future, will slaughter, will shecht this force of negativity, Yetzer Hara. Now, what's going to happen? This is this incredible statement. To the righteous, it will appear as a towering mountain, giant mountain. And to the wicked, it'll appear like a thin hair. Okay. Now, both the righteous and the wicked, the former and the latter, will both cry. They're both going to weep. The righteous people, positive people who were successful in conquering this force of negativity, they're going to cry and they're going to say, how were we able to overcome such a giant mountain? Good question. The wicked will also cry, and people will cry, and they'll say, how were we unable to conquer a thin hair? Yetzer Hara seems to them like a thin hair. Now, the Holy One, blessed be He, it means God, will also wonder with the righteous. As it says, so says Hashem, Lord of hosts, if it is wondrous, if it's unbelievable in the eyes of the remnants of these people, the righteous people that remain in those days, it also is wondrous, unbelievable in my eyes. Okay? That is the story of this medrash, which is really bizarre. Okay? It's a bizarre medrash. I'm sorry, Aggadda. Why is it so strange? Listen to the words that we said here. People are going to be mourning because this force of negativity, the Yetzer Hara that you have inside of us, we all have inside of us, that will be slaughtered in the future. As it says, in the future, God will take this force of negativity, Yetzer Hara, and will slaughter it in front of positive people and negative people. They both cry. Okay? Now, the righteous see it as a giant mountain. And they cry and say, how were we able to overcome this giant mountain? Now, wait a minute. I understand something. Why are they crying? The implication is they were successful. How were we successful in overcoming this giant mountain? So why are they crying? They should be happy. And you can't say it's tears of joy because the text said they're mourning. So why are the righteous crying, say, oh, how do we do it? How do we do it? I don't know you did it, but you did it. So why are you sad? It's good. The negative people, I understand why they're crying. Because they were unsuccessful in their mission in life. And they cry and say, how did we not overcome this thin hair? To them, they see the Yetzer Hara as a thin hair. Now, I want to explain something. I want to understand something with you. That's backwards. It's backwards. If you would imagine the force of negativity for the two different people, you imagine for a righteous person, his force of negativity, you would think, is very small because he's very positive. While a negative person, you would imagine his force of negativity is very great because he wants to do all the negative things. But did you hear what we said in the text? We said it's the opposite. The righteous people see it as a giant mountain. And the evil people see it as a thin hair. But that's backwards. The evil people should have a giant Yetzer Hara. The righteous people should have a little Yetzer Hara. That makes no sense. Question 2. Now, it gets worse then. Because afterwards it says that God says, wow, if these people, the righteous, can't believe they did it, they say, wow, how do we overcome this tremendous mountain? If they can't believe it, if it's wondrous, it's unbelievable to them, God says, you know what? It's unbelievable to me too. Now, that makes no sense. Because God shouldn't be wondering. It doesn't make sense that God doesn't know what it's going to be. It's one of the definitions of God. He's perfect in every way. He can't be that, I can't believe it, I'm shocked. How'd you do it? That makes no sense, because that's contrary to the definition of what we understand God to be. And it's worse than that, because not only God says, I can't believe you did it, he says, if you can't believe it, you succeeded, I can't believe it either. As if God is dependent on the righteous people being so dumbfounded and so shocked that he's also shocked. This makes no sense. Okay? So what we're going to try to do now is try to unravel this concept of the story here, why the righteous see it as a mountain and the evil see it as a hair, not backwards, why the righteous are crying, and why God is in wonderment with the righteous because they can't believe it either. And once we understand that, we're going to understand the key to growth, what it means to grow and how you grow and how this works. Let's try to understand. So first of all, when are we talking about? We're talking about in the future. About in the future. And we've all heard the concept of times of Mashiach, Messianic times. But this is really poorly understood by people because people get fantastical understandings. They don't really understand what this is. But in the world today, even the world of science, the world is moving towards information and knowledge of clarity. And you see that by the different theories looking for a unified theory, the four forces, how they're all unified. Science is searching for understanding of unity in the system. The root idea of Messianic times, the Yemos Mashiach, is a time of clarity. Now, there's a process how it happens. In the beginning, it's clarity, and then we reestablish the land of Israel, Beis Hamikdash, a temple. But the first steps are a world of clarity, when people know the truth, where the concealment we discussed is removed. And then the process, more miraculous things happen as we evolve in that sense. But the basic underpinnings of what creates the concept of the times of Mashiach, times of Messianic times, is a time of clarity, where the world understands and sees the truth. And they move towards that understanding. So that's what it means. God is shechts. He slaughters the Yetzer Hara. It means in the future, once there's clarity in the world, there's a removal of this illusion. If the Yetzer Hara's job is to be the form of God's concealment, he concealed himself, and now you could think there's a separate system, and this is the forms that God, the system he created, that could allow you to live in concealment. Once that's removed, you have clarity. That's what it means. God shechts the Yetzer Hara. Now, I'm going to get to it afterwards because it's a fascinating thing that the word chosen was to be shochet. Because what does that imply to you? What do you hear when you hear God is shechs? He slaughters the Yetzer Hara. The thing that is probably jumping out at you, which is true, is that implies ritual slaughtering, which makes something kosher. All right, but we'll get to that in a second. The simple level right now is God removes, he kills the Yetzer Hara, this force of concealment, and now there's clarity. And now the positive people who are successful in their lives and negative people who are not successful get to see reality. They see the way the world is. And now the evil people, they're going to see it as a thin hair. Why? It should be gigantic, their negativity. The righteous people see it as a giant mountain. So let me try to explain this. If you want to go to the gym and you want to build muscle, okay? So you decide now that the way to do this is to lift weights. Okay, so I have an idea. Maybe what I should do is, I want to build muscle. My first day in the gym, I should try to lift a refrigerator. No, not a good idea. Why not? It's too heavy. So what do I do? Okay, I have an idea. I'll take this book and I'll do curls on this book. 50 curls a day. No, wrong again. Why? This is too light. So what do you need? You need a weight that is exactly the point of resistance. It's not too easy and it's not too hard. That's the point of growth. That's the challenge point that you need to lift. And when you want to build muscle, what you first do is you lift something that is not too easy and not too difficult. It gives you enough resistance that it's the challenge. Okay? That's how you start to grow physically, and we'll see spiritually too. Now imagine you are doing this. You got your weight. Let's say you picked, okay, I'm starting with 25 pounds. You pick 25 pounds, you do 3 sets of 10, and you do it, for a month, 2 months. And then all of a sudden you find that it's really easy. What do you need to do right now if you want to continue growing? And you all know the answer. You need to increase the weight. That's what you need to do. Okay, you can't stay at the 25 pounds because now that's already conquered territory. That's something that you know how to do. And it offers you no more resistance. So if you want to build the muscle, you have to increase the weight. Now, the way the world is built is the physical world is a parallel of the spiritual world. That's not an accident. You're built the way you are as a parallel of the spiritual world. And just like in the physical world, when you want to grow physically, you need to get to the point of resistance. And when there's no more challenge, you need to take on more weight. That's also true in the spiritual world. Now let's understand what happens to the righteous people. The righteous person, when he starts out, he has a challenge and he overcomes it. And now what happens is that the challenge, I did it. This for me is easy now. Okay? Let's say, let's take it even start from a negative person. Let's take an example of a person who grew up amongst thieves. Okay? And he right now steals all the time. For him, stealing is what he thinks is normal. And then what happens is they rob a bank, and his point is, will I kill someone or not? If I get caught, am I going to shoot? Now that's his battleground. That's his resistance point. Now if he goes and he conquers that and really decides he's never going to kill someone, that's already his weight resistance that he's got. That's done. If he really has established that, he'll never do that. But he thinks stealing's okay. But as he's been developing, someone says to him, stealing is not such a good idea. People need that money. It's not yours. Wow, what an interesting idea. And let's say he develops now, and he decides that he's going to stop stealing. Wow, that's amazing. He does it once, twice. He really makes, I'm never going to steal again. That is now also conquered territory. what has to happen in life? He needs the new challenges of growth. Now people tell him, hey, it's going to be a nice person. Really? Nice to people? Okay, he does that. And then he gets more and more refined. Someone says to him, hey, there's a law called Lashon Hara. You can't even talk badly about people. Really? Wow. And he stops talking negatively about other people. Now, if his old buddies from the hood come along and say, hey, you want to knock off a bank? Is he going to say, sure? Is it going to be a challenge for him? No, because that's easy weight already. He's on a different plane. He's lifting big weights. He's refined. He's not speaking negatively about someone. He became a Torah scholar. That's what's happening, why the righteous see it as a big mountain. Because every time in life they succeed on one level, they get another test. And another test. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Until they're shocked that they accomplished so much, because throughout every time they conquered something, they had new and new challenges. But the negative people, what happens is that they don't get past step one. There's an expression in the world, they say someone's a dirty old man. Dirty old man. I want to tell you something about dirty old men. Dirty old men were once dirty young men. What happened was, didn't bother anyone. It's cute, whatever. Okay, whatever it was. But what happens is, as the person doesn't develop, they stay at the first place they were. And now the guy is 70 years old, and he's the same guy he was when he was 15 years old. That's what it means. The negative people see the Yetzer Hara, the force of negativity, as a thin hair, because it never developed. They were knocked off in the early stages. And therefore, the challenges that they should be going through, they haven't, because they got stuck. They didn't understand this principle of resistance. They would have said, okay, this is hard for me, and if I'm going to overcome this, I'm going to be the greater person. If somebody believes in life they have no challenges, I can guarantee you one thing. They are losing. They are losing. Because according to what we've said, you need challenges. That's the resistance to grow. If a person feels, I got no challenges, everything's fine, I guarantee they're losing. And they may look wonderful, but they're not growing. They're just doing what they do. The evil people, they see it as a thin hair and they cry because they say, you know what? That was one thing. I just needed one step. I need to do one thing. And it was so easy. And it really was. Because when you start out in the process of growth, there are certain things that you do. And in the beginning, there's certain things that when you look back, you can say, I could have done that. So they cry because they can't believe they didn't take step one. And the righteous, positive people who've been growing see a giant mountain. Now, I want to explain one thing about a giant mountain in a second to understand. This does not mean that the righteous person, a positive person, is more negative inside than the negative person. It doesn't mean that. What happens is that as you need to grow in life, the challenges you get are more subtle. They're more refined. And as you deal with the challenges of your life, and they're more refined now, you become a greater person. I remember when I was in yeshiva, we learned in Torah Or, and the head rabbi of Scheinberg Zatzal was one of the leading sages of the generation. I remember one time my learning partner, my chavrusa, and I were sitting next to each other, and the Rosh Yeshiva of Scheinberg walked in, and as was customary for a Torah scholar, we stood up. And as we stood up, he was 80 years old at the time, and his knee-jerk response was, no, sit down. Why was that? Because a person who becomes spiritually developed is not going to go and rob the bank. He's not going to go and do something lowly. The Yetzer Hara can get more subtle. Could be like, you know what? You should honor me because I'm very wise. And that becomes his challenge. I'm not saying any person in particular, I'm saying that that's the idea. That the Yetzer Hara does not become, gross, but it still is always giving the challenge. Your resistance is always there, but it's on a more refined level. And that's why the negative people who did not grow see it as a thin hair. The right people who did grow and kept having challenges see these challenges. It's a giant mountain. But why are they crying then? I understand why negative people are crying, because they were unsuccessful, but why are the positive, successful people crying? And the answer is a very, very deep answer. As we started this idea, we said this is the time of clarity, leading into Masar Mashiach and times of revelation, of clarity. And therefore, the righteous cry because they realize that the challenges they had, which allowed them to grow, no longer exist. And whatever they attained, you attained. But once, as we said in the beginning of this discussion, once the clarity is there and there's no hiddenness, you don't have free will to choose. So when God shechs, when he slaughters this negative force of concealment, then what happens is, right now, you are in a world of clarity. So whatever you accomplish, you accomplished. The righteous cry is say, wow, we did it, but it's sad because we wanted to do more now. We can't grow more. Whatever we did, we did. And that's the way the world is built. There's a time of concealment where you have the ability to acquire things and do things and grow. And there's a time of revelation, of clarity, of non-concealment, which is the time of reward. And that's the beautiful paradox that the sages tell us. They say an amazing thing. They say, if you took all the pleasures in this world, from the beginning of time to the end of time, of every person, you rolled them together, they would not equal 1 second of pleasure in the world of eternity, the Olam Haba. Because it's a different kind of pleasure. Here, okay, you have a lot of physical pleasures, you have lower pleasures, you have higher pleasures, maybe of things that of love, but there you're going to have complete connections, a whole different thing. And 1 second there is greater than all the pleasures of this whole world put together. But they say 1 second in this world where you have the ability to learn truth, to do the positive mitzvot, the positive expressions, is greater than all the world to come. Why is that? Because one is for action. Concealment allows me to choose and me to grow. So in one sense, now I'm a growing person. I'm making myself. In that aspect, it's greater than the reward. And in one aspect of the term of pleasure, of the reward, that's much greater than this whole world put together. So that is why they righteous cry, because they say, listen, now the opportunity is over. Now, the last piece we didn't understand is, why does it say that God says, you know what, if the righteous can't believe they were successful, it's amazing to him, I can't believe it either. God doesn't have any doubt. As though nothing he doesn't know. So what do you mean, I can't believe it, it's wondrous. It's unbelievable. It's a pell, it's a wonder to me. If it's a wonder, what does that mean? So the answer is, and if you look in your lives, we're all going to see this. When you have challenges that you go through, you make your effort. But if you look honestly and truthfully, you're going to see that many, many times, certain things just kind of worked out to help you along. And what that really is that is called hashgacha, God's involvement in our lives. I remember me personally. I remember one time I was on my way to Israel, and I was in the south of Spain. And I was playing guitar in the south of Spain, and there was a person there I met, and he had a yacht, and he wanted to go to sailing, and would I come with him? And we had this whole story, and he was going to Senegal, and this and that. And I was thinking of going to Israel. And part of me was like, do I go with this guy on the yacht where we're going to go? And we had some other people to come with us. Or I go to Israel. And I was debating it. And then, amazingly, the guy's yacht broke down. Didn't have the money to fix it. So I ended up going to Israel. Now, could I credit myself with that decision? Maybe, but not really. Because what happens in life is that as you choose and as you try to make a somewhat of a good decision and you make some effort, there is a divine assistance that you get. And this is what the sages tell us, that whoever opens their heart like the eye of a needle, that God will open it like a giant hall, the hall of the temple. He'll open it up. Because when you want to do something good, there is still the assistance that you get to be able to get there. And that's what it means. That God says, if you guys can't believe you did it, I can't believe it either. It's amazing. Because God says, you know what, you guys can't believe it, to tell you the truth. I could tell you that I assisted you. The time that you're so amazed you were successful, don't you know? I helped you in this way, helped you in that way. This thing didn't work out. That's all the things, all of the machinations of our lives is God's involvement when we open our hearts like an eye of a needle. I remembered it was there's a story when I was in Israel for a year and a half, and I came back, and I was taking a train to Trenton, New Jersey, to get my license, and I sat down next to this old Jewish man, and he started talking to me about my past, my future, and how I grew up, and this and that. And I said to him, I grew up, somewhat traditional, but, as an American kid, this and that. And he says, and how'd you get more into Judaism? I said, I was a seeker. I was looking for the truth. And he was really, impressed. And I was really impressed. Wow, a seeker, blah, 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 and I felt it true. I felt that, I had been looking. And then he says to me, he goes, I'm a Holocaust survivor. I said, I don't know if I could do what you did because, I grew up with this. And so I was so ingrained in it that I tasted it. And I went back and I maintained my Jewish connection. And he says to me, he says, tell me, where are your parents from? I said, oh, my parents are from Europe. My parents were Holocaust survivors themselves. And all of a sudden, he got very serious. And he said, don't tell me that you got more involved in your Jewishness because you were a seeker. That's not true. The reason why is because your grandparents who were killed in the Holocaust are in the heavens screaming, what happened to my family? Where are my grandchildren? Where are my great-grandchildren going to be? And when he said that, I was like, whoa. And I first wanted to say, no, it's not true. And I thought about it. And I said, you know what? He's right. I thought about my own life. I said, wow, look at the path. And how did I get here? And I could have gone that way, could have gone this way, could have gone that way. And that's what it means that God says, if it's incredible and wondrous in your eyes, you can't believe it, then I can't believe it either. God said, I can go and say, you know how you did it? Because I helped you. I said this situation, that situation, but I'm not going to do that. Because as long as you made your effort, even just to open up your heart like the eye of a needle, then God said, I can't believe it. I'm going to credit it all to you. That is the depth of what we're talking about. Every person has their point of concealment that can knock them out and throw them off. And if we let ourselves get knocked off and don't go into the battle, then we're stuck with the thin hair. We don't grow because we took the comfort way. Comfort is not the opposite of struggle. Well, it is in a certain ways. Comfort is the opposite of struggle, but comfort is not what pleasure is. Meaning that to be comfortable, it doesn't mean that you're getting the greatest pleasure. It means you're getting used to staying in a certain way. But if we understand that when the challenge happens to us, we say, okay, this is an opportunity. Then you take the thin hair and you build, and you become greater and greater and greater. And more connected. And when you do, the great news is God doesn't say, hey, you know, I helped you because you were trying, and therefore it doesn't really count. No, he says, I credit you all that you did it yourself, even though I helped you. That's what God means. It's wondrous. And I want to tell you, to me, it's maybe one of the most comforting thoughts about this whole process. That if you take this in mind, then it changes everything. The example I gave before about lifting the weights, when you lift a challenge and you have a certain weight, and then when you're successful, you move to another weight, that means you're hitting exactly the point of resistance that you need. And the greatest thought is that every single challenge that you go through, believe it or not, is Hashem, is God giving you exactly what you need to accomplish what you have to accomplish in life. That's what it's for. It's never to knock you out. You've heard people say, you don't get a test, you can't succeed. You don't always know what the success means of it. But the basis of that concept is that every single situation that happens to you is the perfectly tailored opportunity for you to develop in the way that you need to develop, for you to become the great person that you can become. And that's the secret of growth, the secret of free will, and that's the secret of this Aggadda. You know, I said in the beginning, I said, why did God slaughter, ritually shech the Yetzer Hara? And the answer to that is because in the end, there's different kinds of things that push us, Yetzer Haras. There is one that is for control and anger. That's killed off. But there's another part that is desire. And the sages tell us the Yetzer Hara, the pushing for desire, is not removed in the world in the future. It is purified. That's what it means God slaughters. He ritually slaughters the Yetzer Hara. What it means is the desire that a person has, which sometimes in life pushes them to a wrong direction, in the future, that aspect will be used in the proper way. The joy of spiritual existence. So the great news for all of us is that we are being guided, directed all the time to get to the expression of who we really are, to get rid of the negative and to build out even the challenges of the positive to become the greatest expression, to get the ultimate experience of connection in the future. And what we have to do is to step into the challenge and not run away from it, not run to the comforts, but to say, challenge is an opportunity for growth. Thank you all. Good to see you, and we will talk later.